There will not be a quiet day in 2024's summer transfer window. Every day it feels like there's big moves happening. Every day it feels like there's different pieces getting played across the chessboard. And one of the teams that have quietly been involved in a lot of this so far, but are now going out and reinforcing, upgrading their best 11 is Everton, as they look to complete the signing of Jesper Lindstrom in a transfer that might not grab the headlines, might not get the attention of many kind of innocent bystanders out there. But I've seen quite a lot of Jesper Lindstrom, and I rate the guy really highly. And looking at the way that Everton are sitting right now with this Sean Dyche remodel they're going through this summer, I think he is a huge piece to fall in the favour of Everton, and it might actually kick off a really active period in the transfer window as we see Jared Brandthwaite linked away, as well as Dominic Calvert-Lewin and maybe one or two others. In the video today, we'll look at exactly the impact that Jesper Lindstrom can and probably will have on this Everton team as they look to get out of the relegation zone, no matter how many points deductions come their way, and try and get themselves into the mid-table, maybe even try and push and fight and scrap their way perhaps into some sort of European spots, maybe a cup run or whatever. At any point in the video today, if you do laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this as we cover all the most interesting moves across European football throughout the summer transfer window. And when we get into the 24-25 season, that's where the fireworks are going to begin as we follow all the major players and moves and developments across the season. And get into the comment section in this one and let me know, what do you think, especially if you're an Everton fan. Jesper Lindstrom, is this going to be a transfer that pays off for them, or is it going to be another one of those false starts? Everton over the last 10 years, it feels like that's been the main thing that's plagued them, is the amount of false starts they've had with the big ownership coming in, big name managers, high fee, high level prospect transfers, and it's never really taken off. But I think this remodel, I think this is the beginning of it going on an upward trajectory. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section, and let's just get stuck straight into it. Now, first things first, this is not Everton's first venture into the transfer market. Like I mentioned in the intro, they've been quietly involved in actually a lot of the headline-grabbing business that's been going with all the horse trading of youth players and FFP manipulation and everything else, which, hey, fair enough. Everton need to get every inch that they can get after the horrible, relentless, inhumane, you might even say, treatment from the Premier League and all the other stuff that was kind of going on. So there has been some moves, there has been some shakes, there's been some outgoing transfers, there's been a bit of incoming already. And today, this is how the Everton squad is sitting. Now, it is very thin. If you look at a lot of the other analysis videos we do on the channel, so many other Premier League squads in the same realm as Everton, and I'd use that as a bit more of a historic context because Everton obviously last season were handicapped and way further behind on the actual table itself. But it's a very, very thin squad. It's very, very shallow. There is two to position for the back four for now, which is, you know, basic, which is great. And in Jordan Pickford, they've got a goalkeeper that I'm not a big fan of, but the guy is a hero of a goalkeeper. He can make big saves in big moments and be a leader, be a big voice organisationally. And, you know, like, he is a decent keeper. There's no getting away from it. He's just not my cup of tea personally. But yeah, two positions against the back four, and a goalkeeper like this is always going to give you the foundation of the potential to build a really interesting attack and a really exciting attack that can cause teams problems and really open them up. And that's been the big thing of interest of watching Sean Dyche at Everton, is how is he going to evolve himself into making that sort of thing happen? Because if you're going to finish in the top spaces in the table, you need to be able to cut teams open. You need to have different routes to go. You need to have as many players as possible at the right end of the pitch that are capable of putting the ball in the back of the net or setting their teammates up, etc., making the most of the chances they get. Now, if Idrissa Gana Gueye or James Garner get injured, you do feel that the engine room is super thin. Now, Tim Irabagum, if that's how you say it, Irabagum, I always get it wrong, is all they have for centre midfield. Now, Doucouré has been playing kind of off the striker as like the most forward midfield player. And it's hard to imagine that Sean Dyche is going to like nerf that in some way, because Doucouré has been one of their best players. Obviously, Onana was a big part of, you know, his good form when they were playing together. Obviously, he's been sold now, or basically been sold to Aston Villa, so he's no longer here. Maybe a replacement for him will be forthcoming. But I just want to throw it out there, I've not watched as much Everton last year as I did a bunch of other teams, just to be frank with you. So if there is anything to correct me on or I get something wrong, feel free to drop that in the comment section as well. But I wouldn't rule out the potential that Doucouré maybe then becomes like more of a centre mid alongside Jesper Lindstrom, and it's more of, you've got Idrissa Gana Gueye doing the shielding job, And then you've not only got Doucouré to go up here and support the strikers, but you've got Jesper Lindstrom, because this is firmly his role. This is firmly where you get the best out of him, is in transition when the ball goes from back to front. Similar to Dyche Kamada, who we're all excited to see at Crystal Palace this year. But these players that come from the Frankfurt, the Glasner kind of ball, as it were, they're used to turning the ball over quickly, running into dangerous areas and making split-second decisions, almost blindfolded, because it's so well rehearsed off the training ground. And, with the likes of Harrison and McNeil as the wide players, I think you get a lot of, those guys, for me, again, I'm big fans of both of them individually. There's no depth behind them. I don't know who their backup left winger or right winger will be this year, but these are hard-working guys that normally make the right decision, and they like to play the ball in. They're not guys that are greedy, or they're not guys that really are going to come inside and shoot too often. So having centre midfield players in Doucouré and Lindstrom, maybe even just coming over to help them and make little triangles and stuff, could be a little development that we have. But Jesper Lindstrom is firmly a final third midfielder. So I don't know if I really can't imagine for the fee that he's been brought in for that he's just going to be competing with Doucouré as much as it's going to be some sort of evolution on the team, whether it be, like I mentioned, they play alongside each other in this kind of shape, or Doucouré covers that kind of shield job that Onana was having, because this job also needs you to travel up the pitch as well, which Doucouré looks very, very good at doing, going by players with power and pace, and again, turning the ball over, because Everton will be defending. Everton are not going to have dominant possession stats in a lot of matches. Sean Dyche will be preparing for this anyway, and having attacking players and having midfield players in the engine room especially, because Lindstrom isn't a guy that doesn't track back or anything like that. If anything, he's got very good defensive statistics when it comes to the forward press, most notably, but he will come back into a midfield and make it tight and make it difficult for the opposition to play in between the lines and really pick Everton open. So he does have the ability to do both ends of the game very, very well. A similar player, if you've never seen him play before, Jesper Lindstrom, is maybe Kai Havertz in a roundabout way. I call Jesper Lindstrom the dweeb, personally, because when I first seen this guy kind of breaking through, it doesn't look overly great. You actually need to watch him a couple of times before you really start to see how smart he is at some of the positions he picks up for getting the goal-scoring opportunities that he has, and just how well he can read the game in terms of, making the right pass at the right time, being really press-resistant as well. Like, he's not a bad player to have in possession. He doesn't get his pocket picked too often, and he's got a big frame without being a big brute of a guy, if that makes sense. So he's a guy that, and again, with his funny haircut and stuff like that, I've just always called him the dweeb, but he is a guy that grows on you. He's a really good player. I don't know if I'd quite say cult hero, but saying the Kai Havertz thing, it's more like, maybe he would even play up front. I wouldn't rule that out. He could play in one of these wide areas as cover, 100%, but I'd firmly see him much more as like an offensive midfielder that can get in a bit of a forward press to overload with the front striker, but can do both sides of the game as well, or being, like in the previous system at Frankfurt that he played in, I know he's a signing from Napoli, but he never really kicked a ball in Italy. These players, Harrison and McNeil, would have been much more narrow, and it's a tight front three that would go on and press the back line and look for mistakes and look for turnovers in that sense. So it could even be something like that, where maybe he actually displaces Jack Harrison from the team altogether, and he forms a front three with McNeil, and I've got Calvert-Lewin here, but we reckon he leaves and it's probably Dyche and McNeil, and it's a bit more of an evolution on that sense. You're then only getting your width from the fullbacks, which between Young and Michaelenko, that's the profile that they have anyway. And Coleman and Patterson, again, it's just the age balance between these players. It's just totally the extreme ends, isn't it? Maybe not quite with Michaelenko, but Young and Coleman, you can't rely upon them, I think, for 38 games to be the width in this team, to be the guys that are going to continuously for 90 minutes bomb on and overlap and just give wider options. And if the ball's on the left-hand side, Coleman needs to be really Patterson, they're wide players. You need width from somewhere. And if the ball is on one side of the pitch and getting crowded, the opposite end of the pitch, you do need a player that is going to be capable of, hanging wide. And if the switch is on in two passes, they can be found. And then you've got another method of attack down a bit of space with some players that could be running off markers into blind spots, so yeah, they can do it, but it's just, is it there or not? So I do think with Everton's very thin squad, the addition of Lindstrom clearly gives them a lot more versatility and a few more options for what they can actually do if they were not to do any more business from here, which I don't think will be the case. I do think Calvert-Lewin's probably going to go. Big Jared is probably going to make his way on as well. And then, Everton don't need any more strikers. Between Mopai, this Chermiti guy, Beto, who they spent a lot of money on, and now Ndai, Ndai could populate a new front three with Lindstrom on one side, him on the other. And again, it could be a really high energy kind of front three, perhaps. Maybe it's not Mopai, maybe it's like Beto or something, a bit more of a target man presence. but we could see some sort of development like this as well. And that would be a really modern kind of football approach, that with a really solid backline that would get width from fullbacks, have a really clean engine room that's really good on the ball, press resistant, and can play those long diagonals. Then, you know, a front three of Ndiaye, Beto, Lindstrom, maybe that's something that could be looked at as well. But for not that many players, Everton, like I said, already now have a lot of options. And when the Jared Bowen move would happen, you maybe see Keane or Holgate come in. And like I say, with Calvert-Lewin, there's some natural replacements here anyway. But then that money, that capital, those resources that Everton have, they're probably going to go back into midfield somewhere, and they're probably going to be an upgrade in this position here. If this is not Doucouré going to just take this role over, because Garner, and again, I've not watched Everton as much as some other teams, so pardon me if I'm speaking out of turn, but Garner, although has like a good passing range and is very strong or whatever, he's not Onana, you know, he's not that guy that, similar to Doucouré, who is like, maybe he is to some of you, I don't know, I've maybe not seen enough of him, but he doesn't strike me as that guy that is going to go all over the pitch and be influential in all the key areas, all the duels, all the turnovers of play, whether it's snuffing out counter-attacks as well as creating them. And yeah, he's maybe got a bit of that to him, but see, I've maybe not watched enough. I'm hesitant to say anything definitive on players I've not got a clean opinion of, like some of them. But McNeil, Harrison, there's a lot of guys here that I'm quite well up on. But I'm looking forward now to watching to see what Everton do throughout the rest of the window, because I think Lindstrom is coming into this team to be a best 11 player, and it's just a matter of where for me. And if Everton are making another 2 or 3 signings, I think it's going to be of that calibre. I think it's going to be of that price range as well, because that's really what this team needs if it is going to go and kick in and compete with the likes of Wolves, Crystal Palace, West Ham, never mind even getting into the realms of like the Chelseas and the Tottenhams and whoever else might. Like some of these teams that finished really high last year won't finish as high this year because they're playing Champions League, there's transfer activity, maybe a change of manager for 1 or 2 of them. So I do think the top half of the table, outside the top 2 spots, I think it's going to be still City and Arsenal most likely. But you know, the rest of the top 10 is kind of up for grabs. And like we've seen with Aston Villa and with Tottenham last year, like if you're not in European football or you've got a really good plan with a manager, you make some really smart business, really anything could happen. And Everton, if they start off with Lindstrom and they keep on that kind of vein, really anything could happen for them. On screen now, guys, is some other stuff that I've made that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. I hope you enjoyed this one, guys. I'm really excited for the Toffees and Jesper Lindstrom. Get into the comment section, hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to like the video if you did laugh, learn, or like something or whatever. Stay out of trouble, and I'll catch you on the next one.